To the Death by Andrea Tang. This was on my list of most anticipated books of the year, simply because I think it has a great description. This is a YA fantasy novel about teenagers in a magical dueling competition. Great premise. I think the premise really carries this because the writing itself is like fine. It's a YA novel, and you can tell it's kind of ham fisted. The character archetypes are kind of overt. A lot of the emotions are very spelled out for you. It's very telegraphed. You kind of know where this is going and who these characters are going to be. And, like, that's okay for a YA novel. However, the book I read right before this was They Bloom at Night by Tran Tran, and that is a YA horror novel with, like, sci-fi fantasy elements, and that book is beautifully written. It is so deep. There are so many themes. The prose is lovely. It's lush. There are so many beautiful metaphors. Just a gorgeously written book for teenagers. And so my instinct is to say it's okay that To the Death doesn't have fantastic, deep, incredible writing because it is for teenagers, but I literally just read that book for teenagers that was incredible. And so it feels like a cop-out to say it's YA, it doesn't have to be good. It's fine, but it's not impressive at all, especially right after what I just read. But the writing's fine, and the premise is really fun. There's not as much magic as I wanted. There's not a lot of lore, which is, like, maybe okay. Like, this, as a fantasy novel, could be something that has way too much lore and backstory and, like, magical history, but it's not that at all. It's the opposite. It needed more lore. Kind of, for the scope of the novel, we don't need a lot of lore. We're really focused on, like, 4 characters, I guess, and their conflict with each other in this, like, very short time frame, which is really good for pacing. I think this is a well-paced novel. I like the conflict that's going on, and I like all of the interpersonal conflicts. I would say all 4 of these characters have some sort of relationship with each other that, like, really makes the plot kind of juicy. So I really like the scope, and I like the pacing. But I wanted more magic. Because this is a world, it's exactly like our world, except some people are born with the ability to do magic, apparently. Not gone into, really, about how that works. Is it inherited? Does it just happen? And, like, how does it happen? Like, when do you find out? What age? Because magic isn't allowed outside of these dueling arenas. So this is basically a sport. Magic is a combat sport. It's basically football. Our main characters are all teenagers. They're just 18, and they're just getting into this as, like, a professional kind of gig. Like, they're entertainers. They're sports entertainers. But they can't do magic. And magic used to be a thing that, like, it was a free-for-all, and anyone could just do it at any time. But people would, like, kill each other. And so magic got outlawed. For a time, you couldn't do magic at all. And then they started, like, underground dueling rings, where people would die and get killed. And that's still a problem today, even though they have legalized, like, entertainment magic, stage magic. And there's a lot of rules and regulations that go into it to make sure nobody gets really hurt. But, like, why are we not using this for other purposes? We're thinking way too much about it. I'm thinking way too much about it. Again, the scope of this novel is rather small. We're focused on, like, these teen duelists. But I'm thinking about the world. So, magic exists, and we don't actually get a lot of descriptions of, like, what types of magic are possible to be done. There is elemental magic, that's the basics, so air, fire, water. Or is it earth, fire? I don't know. I don't know that it even said. Like, the 4 elements, that's what it says. But there's also, like, siphoning magic. Like, you can control people or, like, curse people and hex people and, like, make them feel pain. And so, like, what is the range of possibility of how you can manipulate the world with this magic? I don't know, and the book doesn't go into it. Like, the author might know, like, they might have been thinking about that as they were constructing this, but they just don't touch on it at all. And, like, that doesn't seem realistic. Because even if magic was used to hurt people, and, like, the people with magic were using that to dominate the people without magic, or were, like, they think more highly of themselves and would, like, subjugate people who didn't have magic. Just because you can use it for evil doesn't mean you couldn't also use it for good. Like, what if there's a drought? Like, is there not, like, some child who's able to use magic living in a drought, and she's, like, the child of a farmer, and she's like, but Papa, I could grow the crops with my water magic. And he's like, no, 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 it's illegal. You cannot do that. But Papa, Mother is sick. She needs nourishment. I could give her food. He's like, no, 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 it's illegal. So that's someone else's story that must be happening in this world. Because, like, what do you... Like, how can you ban completely innocent, like, very productive, good uses of magic? But, like, they're banned. I'm thinking way too much about it. The book does not want you to think about this. The book does not care. It's not relevant. But, like, any fantasy novel, any magic system, like, makes you think about those questions. And, like, you expect me to believe that the US government doesn't have some sort of, like, secret magical soldier training program? I don't believe you. And, like, what about other countries? It's banned in the US, but, like, are other countries allowed to have magic? Or is there, like, technology and, like, lifestyle just, like, drastically changing compared to the US? Or, like, do they have magic armies? If another country has a magic army, like, wouldn't you need a magic army? I feel like the US government would be scouting out these, like, teenage fighting arenas and, like, picking out good soldiers. You know what I mean? There's just a ton of lore here that just does not get explored because the author isn't interested in it. I was interested in it. I wanted more. I didn't need every single little detail about everything ever and an entire historical timeline about how long has magic been around, how long has it been legal, how long has it been banned. But, like, I wanted more. Give me something. There's so much potential, and it doesn't go into any of it. What we do get is a story focused on these specific characters. We have 2 point of view characters. We have Tamsin Blackwood. She is an 18-year-old undefeated duelist. Her father was a big-time duelist. He's, like, the most famous guy. He's the guy. And now she is his only daughter, and she is to carry on the Blackwood family legacy of being the best duelist ever. However, her father is comically evil. It's a bit ham-fisted. In, like, the first scene, she wins a match, and then she does a post-game interview, and she doesn't really mention him. She doesn't, like, thank him for teaching her all of these things and being the best coach ever. And then he gets mad at her because he's blatantly narcissistic. It's a little bit over the top. Like, it's on the nose. There's a couple points where it tries to do a little more in terms of giving him depth and, like, showing a more loving side of him as, like, a tough love kind of thing, but mostly she's just kind of comically evil. He's not the most comically evil villain you've ever seen, but, like, he's pretty comically evil. And that first scene with him is, like, it's a little bit over the top compared to everything else. So, like, right away you get the sense that this is the bad guy. Our other main character is Samantha Chan. She is the second to another teen duelist who's, like, undefeated and really good. His name is Lysander Rook. These are very fantasy novel names. I do like the name Lysander Rook, and also Tamsin Blackwood is a fantastic fantasy name. Kind of too good for this, or, like, I don't know, because it's just, like, a modern AU, and Tamsin Blackwood is, like, a lot. But I like it. And then Samantha Chan is not very fantasy at all. That's just a normal name. Poor Samantha, but that's her story. Her older brother was a duelist who got involved in an underground dueling scene and died there. And the man who owned that underground dueling club is Mr. Blackwood, Tamsin's father, the bad guy. So Samantha is Lysander's second, which basically means that she is his manager / assistant / coach / best friend / support, emotional support, whatever. She just fills whatever role needs to be done. Tamsin's second is her father, who's, like, her coach, her manager. When I hear the term second, I think, like, they fight together. Or, like, you know, like, maybe it's a tag team thing and they could tag each other in and out or something. No, just, like, a manager friend. But she is also a duelist, but she doesn't really duel. But she really, really wants revenge on Tamsin's father, Mr. Blackwood, and so she has invited Tamsin to duel Lysander, and he's, like, a real tough guy, and, like, every time he gets into the ring, he always wins, and his opponents always get really hurt, and she wants Tamsin to get hurt because she thinks that hurting Mr. Blackwood's daughter will hurt Mr. Blackwood. I forget Mr. Blackwood's first name. I'm so sorry, Mr. Blackwood. He's a villain. I'm not sorry. Now, this dueling invitation happens like really early on in the novel, and I thought it would be a thing where she goes to this duel and then something goes wrong, she loses. Her dad actually wants her to throw the duel. She's undefeated, but her dad wants her to throw the duel and like rig the match so he can make a bunch of money on it. Which is kind of weird because he has a reputation as like a really great duelist, like the best duelist. And so if his daughter loses, that seems like bad for his reputation. But I guess he gets money, and I guess maybe he's bad with money because he's got these like underground gambling rings. But presumably that brings in money because he runs them. He's not like, I mean, I guess he could be gambling on it as well. I don't know. That really doesn't get brought up a ton again. But I thought maybe she throws the match and she regrets it, and then she has to find a way to get a rematch with him and then win in the end and, you know, correct her mistake or like whatever that is, you know? But no, this entire book is leading up to that match. So it's not a very long span of time. And we have a very clear goal of like where we're going. And I really like that because it felt very grounded. However, the con of that is that she doesn't do any magical fighting until like the end of the book. There's only a couple magical fight scenes in this, which surprised me because it's a book about magical fighting. And I thought there would be more magical fighting and more like explanations of the spells and like how they work and what they're capable of. And I thought it'd be really, really cool. It wasn't that cool. It wasn't that cool. And that was the saddest part of this, is that it could have been fantastic, and instead it's just like, okay. But we don't know how this match is going to go because there are all of these factors that may play into it. Like the dad wants her to lose. She kind of wants to win because there's a big cash prize, and then if she wins, she can win the money, and then she can take it and she can kind of go off on her own and get rid of her evil narcissistic dad who like pays everything for her because he's rich even though he needs money. I don't know. But she is worried that like his name is the reason she gets all these sponsorships and like everyone wants to duel her. And you know, she's like a big name. She's a real up and coming star. And she thinks that, you know, if she doesn't have her dad backing her, maybe she's not that good. But she's like an undefeated duelist, so like she'll be fine. But she's 18 and she doesn't know that, and also she's kind of dumb. I'm gonna say she's a little bit dumb. I don't know that she was meant to be dumb. There's a scene where Samantha's doing recon and she runs into Tamsin, and gets a bunch of information out of her. And Tamsin just like admits that her father wants her to rig this game and like lose this game on purpose. And like at this point in the conversation, Samantha is not saying like, oh, I'm the second of the guy you're gonna fight and I know who you are. Samantha's just saying like, oh, you do magic? I'm a magic fan. I know magic. Tell me about your magic. And then Tamsin's over here admitting like, yeah, my dad wants me to do something really illegal that would ruin my career. Like, why are you just saying that to a fan? And at this point, it's already been established that there are forums online where like the fans like message each other and gossip about all of the dueling stars. And also Tamsin is media trained and she has this like social media presence, and like she curates her image and she has to look a certain way when she's in the dueling arena. So like why would she just be blabbing about that to a random fan? That doesn't make sense, man. And she even says who she is. Like at first Tamsin doesn't say she's Tamsin Blackwood. She just says like, I'm a duelist, and so she's like, maybe. It's not even a case of like, maybe this girl doesn't know who I am. Like she later on says her name and like says who her father is, and like that's a big fucking scandal. And like that little fan could rat you out. And it's not even a fan, it's your enemy, who like now has this information about you. It's really dumb that she did that. That scene was dumb. I don't think the character was supposed to be that dumb. But like again, the rigging thing doesn't really come into play a lot until a little bit later. Whatever. But Tamsin doesn't know that Samantha's really doing recon here. Eventually Samantha says who she is and that she is Lysander's second and that she's involved in this competition between them. But then they just like kind of become friends. Whatever. And then the more they hang out, they do develop a romantic relationship. This book is not very gay. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would give this like maybe a 3 on gayness. We're pushing at a 3, somewhere around there. It is a sapphic romance. They do develop a romance, but it's not a romance novel, and so we're really focused on plot here. And also, it's just not gay in the sense that these characters don't really think about being gay ever. I guess sexuality just isn't a big thing in this world, or at least it's not presented as a big thing in these people's lives. They don't think about how they're weird for being attracted to women, or like how it's taboo, or anything like that. They don't label themselves. I don't know. They don't think about queerness at all. They're just like every once in a while there'll just be a line that's like, she's really pretty. And then they kiss like a couple times. And the first kiss is kind of out of the blue a little bit, to be honest. But like I wasn't mad about it because I did want more romance actually. So not super gay. If you want a really good, like deep fantasy sapphic romance, probably not this. But if you want some magical dueling lesbians, this does have that. But it's not the best version of what it could be, of like what I wanted. Every book needs to be catered specifically to my interests, by the way. And then as they grow closer and develop crushes on each other, Samantha feels bad for like deceiving Tamsin or like gathering information on her to. She wants Lysander to win and crush Tamsin, and then she feels bad that she wants Tamsin to lose. And then there's, questions of does Tamsin deserve to suffer for her father's sins? And that kind of plays out how you expect. I will say the ending was a bit unexpected. I don't know that I want to spoil it. But, like, I'll say that the action keeps going, like, up until the end. Like, the climax is, like, right at the end. Like, there's, like, not a lot of denouement here. And I like that. Like, it kind of keeps you on your toes. And it didn't go exactly where I expected in a good way because this was a very sort of predictable YA novel. I like that this kept good pacing and kept the action going and, like, kept my attention right up until the very end. And the end is when we get, like, all the magic stuff and the duels, so, like, that's good. Even though they weren't, like, the greatest duels ever, because, again, we don't really have a grand understanding of this magic system. But I was like, yay, magic, finally. Then I'll get into Lysander as a character. He's sort of, he's a better villain here, because there's a lot more depth to him. He is Sam's, like, best friend, kind of, but they also sort of have slightly rocky relationship moments. There's a point where he hits on her, and she's like, no, I kind of have a crush on that other girl, I shouldn't be with him, even though he's, like, the hottest dude, and I should be honored to be with him. Why don't I want to be with him? Why can't I stop thinking about that girl? But that's not a super heavy plot point. That doesn't go very far. But he's really cocky, because he's won every duel, and he's not afraid to hurt people. And there's a point where he's like, you know what, us people with magic are better. Like, I am just stronger than everyone. Don't you wish we lived in the era where we could just do magic whenever we wanted to anyone we wanted? That also doesn't really get fully explored. He doesn't have a terrible corrupting villain arc here. Spoiler alert, I did think that's where it was going. That he'd, like, get involved in the underground rings and just start fucking killing people for funsies. That didn't happen. He was a bit more complex than that. Again, not a two-dimensional villain. But really, when we're introduced to him, what we know about him is dueling is his life. He wants to win. He goes into every match. He needs to win. He is undefeated. He's, like, the best duelist right now, even though he's, like, 18. And presumably there should be, like, adult leagues. I don't know. He would just be coming into the adult leagues. I don't know how it works. Again, not fully explored. But he's a really big up-and-coming name, and he cares about winning. Except when he has little character moments that don't add up to that at all. Early on, we get a scene where a girl flirts with him because he's so beautiful and popular and talented, and he's the best. He's basically like the quarterback. That kind of stereotypes. All the girls want him. Some girl flirts with him, and he, like, doesn't really reciprocate. And Sam's like, that girl was pretty. What are you doing? Why didn't you get with her? And he's like, yeah, she's pretty, but, like, how is a pretty girl gonna help me get better at dueling? So he will literally sacrifice anything in favor of dueling. Like, even beautiful women he won't date. You know, he needs to be entirely focused on his dueling. Except, like, 5 minutes later, he whips out a cigarette, and Sam's like, you should not smoke because it's bad for your cardio, and then you won't have the stamina in the dueling ring. Like, that's bad for your dueling. And he's like, you're such a buzzkill. Whatever, it's not gonna hurt. And I'm like, no, I think the character obsessed with dueling, willing to shut out any other area of their life for dueling, would care about his health a little more. There's also a moment where Sam is going through video footage of Tamsin's matches to understand how she plays, and then brief Lysander on her playstyle and, like, how to beat her. And she's like, will you watch this footage so you can see how she plays and how we beat her? And he's like, no, I'm not gonna watch all that footage. And I'm like, I feel like that would help you. I feel like that would help. I feel like that's pretty sports 101. is you review your competitor's footage. I guess it's established that that's the second's job, and then the second just gives you secondhand information, and you just trust that. But like, if you wanted to be the best of the best, would you not look at that video footage firsthand and like make your own judgments on it and listen to your second? Sorry if you hear my cat coughing up a hairball off camera. She's my second, and she's not good at her job. It's very rude of her. So, like, I don't know about that characterization. It seemed like it was to paint him as, like, this very cocky figure. Like, he just knows he's gonna win. But, like, he's so committed to dueling. Like, that's how you introduced him, as doing anything to get better at dueling. And then he doesn't do the things that will objectively make him better at dueling. I don't know, man. I didn't get that. Another thing that didn't quite click for me was these illegal dueling rings. Like, people are dying, but I don't think we've ever gotten any indication of, like, people going to jail for this. Even though they're in illegal, like, banned dueling rings that, like, no one knows about. Doing magic that is not regulation that kills people. Like, presumably there would be busts of these places, but, like, we don't really get any mention of that. And Tamsin's father doesn't ever seem super worried about that. And there's a line where they're talking about Sam's brother who died in one of these. Apparently he signed a contract, like, before he dueled. But, like, this is an illegal dueling ring. Like, that contract doesn't mean jack shit. Like, it's illegal. And they said the reason, like, no one was ever prosecuted for his death, it was just, like, I guess the police weren't interested because he was an 18-year-old adult who made the decision to compete in the stupid dueling ring and signed a form about it, but, like, the dueling ring is still illegal. Like, we still gotta do something about that? No? I don't think paperwork is getting them out of this illegal fight club. You know what I mean? I don't think that's how that works. There is some concern shown for that, like the guy who actually killed Jamie. It's implied that Tamsin's father, like, killed that guy because he sort of brought negative attention on them. But I would have preferred to see Tamsin's father, like, framing that guy and, like, making him the scapegoat of it all or something. And then that guy gets arrested. But then I guess he could talk and tell who, like, the real owner of the club is. I don't know. I feel like the police should care about this more. Am I nuts? Oh, and I wrote down one line I didn't like. Tamsin is having, like, a stressful day, and she grabs her water bottle and she's like, I wish this was wine. Which is such an adult line. No teenager has ever grabbed their water bottle and been like, I had a stressful day, I need a glass of wine. No. If a teenager is saying that, they have a severe drinking problem. And this child does not have a drinking problem. She does not drink in this book. She does not mention alcohol ever again in this book. That is just an adult writing something that they would say, and not something that this child would realistically say. That's all I wrote. I only wrote negative things. This wasn't bad. It wasn't great. It was kind of middling. I gave it like a 3-star, but it's kind of like a 2.75. Like, it was sort of disappointing. There were a couple of, like, little, not plot holes, but, like, character holes. I guess you could say plot holes with, like, the illegal stuff. And then it just, like, didn't live up to a cool magical dueling story. Like, if you read the description of this, it sounds really cool and, like, epic. And, like, fight scenes and romance. And there's not a lot of romance. And there's not a lot of fight scenes. And it was a little disappointing to me. But it wasn't bad. And the writing was, like, just okay. It was kind of a miss. But not in a terrible way, where I hated it. Just in a way that left me going, that could have been better. I wish that had been better. It was cool, though. I like the world. I wanted to know more about it. I think if there had been more lore and, like, more magic exploration, I think I would have liked this even more. But I had to do all that thinking myself, which is fun. I actually do like that to an extent, but, like, I have so many questions. And, like, the practicalities. But I am just a person who overthinks fantasy magic systems. I just do. It would just fucking revolutionize everything, man. Everything would be different. If you could spit water out of your hands, or like control someone, or fire. Fire can be useful in a non-lethal way. You could just like light some fires. I don't know, man. I don't know. You could have firefighter of waterbenders. I don't know, man. The magic should have been more than football. I don't know how it got relegated to just being a sport, but it doesn't matter. It's a fun sport. It's a cool idea. I don't think it was totally fleshed out, but it wasn't totally bad either. It just could have been better, but it's fine. Kind of disappointing in the fact that this was one of my most anticipated books of the year, just because the premise sounded so cool. And then it was less cool than I wanted. But they can't all be winners. They can't all be catered exactly to me and my tastes. Unfortunate. But we move on. It was really readable. Again, good pacing. So, like, it's a fun little YA novel. If you want a sort of fun magic system that's, like, not super hard magic, you don't get a lot of info dumpy lore, backstory, historical stuff. It's just, like, fun magic arena stuff. But not, like, a lot of magic arena stuff. But it's still a cool idea. And so you can check it out if it sounds interesting. But it might not blow you away. But that's it. On to the next one.